What's up, everybody, and welcome to a Friday morning edition of Believe in White Sox here on the Believe Podcast Network. I'm Greg Moraz, your host. We are coming to you before the White Sox open up a 3-game series against the Seattle Mariners. I will be heading out to Wright Field tonight to watch the Sox take on the M's. Pitching probables for this series are going to be Emerson Hancock against Sean Burke tonight. Then it'll be Anthony Kay and Luis Castillo on Saturday. And then Sunday is going to be the one I will not be there, but that's going to be the game that I think everybody's going to have their eye on in terms of pitching matchups. One of the best pitchers in baseball this year versus one of the best overall starters in the American League. It'll be Davis Martin for the Sox against Logan Gilbert for the Mariners. So I looked at this last trip to the West Coast, and the schedule makers have really done the White Sox no favors because this is the second of 3 West Coast trips that they are going to do before Memorial Day. And the White Sox schedule gets a little bit more favorable in terms of not having to travel 2 time zones. Now, this is the first game of a 9-game homestand because you've got the Crosstown Classic coming up a week from tonight. And I have to say, it pains me how good the Cubs are right now. I have to admit it. The Cubs are playing like the best team in baseball. I think they have too many pitching injuries to actually be the best team in baseball, but they're certainly a top 3 team in the National League. They're annoying, but they're playing good baseball. I don't know how good they actually are. I just think their pitching injuries are going to be too much to overcome. But for the White Sox, this was a 3-3 road trip where they ran out of gas. I think it easily could have been a 5-1 road trip. They come up with big wins in San Diego on Friday and Saturday. Noah Schultz was really good on Friday. On Saturday against the Padres, they just found a way to hold on at the end. Sean Burke was fabulous. Grant Taylor got in trouble in the 9th after he was good in the 8th, and Sir Anthony Dominguez came in and was able to get the job done and get the win. And in the Sunday game, they very, very easily could have ended up winning that game. But once again, it was the inability to come up with a clutch hit, which I think has been one of the biggest issues for this White Sox team at this point. I mean, and again, this is the part, and I also look to Tuesday night's game against the Angels. This is the part to me that bugs me in that Will Venable, for the most part, has his finger on the pulse in the right ways. But there are certain decisions that have been made, and it's easy to criticize the bad because human nature wants to attract more of the negative than the positive. And I get that. There are a lot of people that would accuse me of being somebody like that. I try not to be, but naturally, I am somebody that at times is more negative than they should be. But Will Venable hasn't necessarily identified his team's biggest weaknesses in high leverage situations. To me, when you're in the 9th inning against San Diego, and I actually want to go back to the 8th. I want to go back to the 8th. Because you have somebody in the game in Tyler Davis. And Tyler Davis has been fine, but this is a guy that was brought up from the minors on April 23rd. This is not somebody that you bring up and automatically have him as a high leverage situation guy. And I say this to say He pitched a good seventh. Fine. Why did you bring him back out for the eighth? That's the thing. Why'd you bring him back out for the eighth? And you brought Brian Hudson in, and he was the one that ended up giving up the hit that put San Diego in front 4-3. But why is it Tyler Davis that's coming back out for the eighth inning? That's the thing that I don't understand. Yeah, he had a 1-2-3 seventh. But why is he coming out for the eighth? Why don't you have Jordan Hicks come in, or Sean Newcomb come in, or Grant Taylor? Well, probably you don't have Grant Taylor come in because he pitched close to 2 innings the night before. But why isn't it Sean Newcomb? Why isn't it Jordan Hicks? Why are you going with somebody that does not have the experience in these situations? Why not go to Brian Hudson there, based on how good Brian Hudson has been this season? There have been other times when Will Venable has just decided, I don't care about the leverage of situation, I'm just going to put this guy in. And I hope that's something that he learns, but to me, you have to understand and prioritize who comes in certain situations. Yes, you were somewhat able to cheat death in that you got 2 runs in the top of the 7th inning, thanks to a 2-run homer from, of all people, Derek Hill. And he brings in Tyler Davis in a tie game in the 7th inning. To me, that is Hudson, that's Newcomb, or that's Hicks. But he brings in Tyler Davis, and Tyler Davis goes 1-2-3. Why are you bringing him back out for the 8th? You got all you needed to out of him. Why is he coming back out for the 8th? Those are the types of decisions that drive me crazy at times, because to me, you've got to prioritize what your bullpen is. You have to know who fits what role. And maybe there are certain guys that you don't know who's going to fit that role yet, but I'll tell you one thing, it's not the guy that was brought up 2 weeks ago and doesn't have experience in high leverage situations at the major league level. That's not the guy you put in the game. And then I want to go to the 9th inning of that Sunday game against San Diego. Derek Hill had just hit a 2-run homer. Why are you pinch hitting Edgar Carroll for him? I understand why they pinch hit Jared Kelenic, because they wanted to go righty-lefty against Adrian Morejon, and Morejon is a very hard-throwing left-handed pitcher. So that move I get. But you have to have a little bit of self-awareness, and this is the issue that also came to the forefront on Tuesday night when the Sox had the bases loaded and a chance to tie the game. Edgar Carroll right now is lost. He's lost at the plate. He needs a reset. And I think when Kyle Teal comes back, it should be Edgar Carroll and not Drew Romo that goes down to the minor leagues. One of my friends suggested to me that, similar to what the White Sox did with Colson Montgomery last year when he was struggling at AAA and they sent him back to Arizona to get his mind right, maybe they do the same thing with Carroll. It's not an unreasonable solution to get somebody that, at this time last year, he had just made his debut in mid-April, and we were feeling pretty good about what Edgar Carroll was going to be in the context of the future of the White Sox. He's being outplayed right now by somebody that is just a guy. Now, a former high draft pick, but somebody that crapped out in Colorado and got his chance in the White Sox AAA organization and comes up to the big leagues and has hit some pretty big homers during his time. So I think that electing to pinch hit Edgar Quero in that spot instead of just letting Derek Hill hit again was an interesting choice. And then on Tuesday night, you did not pinch hit for Quero. You could have pinch hit in theory. Now that I actually look at the bench, who could they have pinch hit in theory in that game? Because they had already brought Murakami in. They had already brought Peters in. They could have pinch hit Romo. I would have been okay with that if that was the decision that they made. But, at that point, they had already used Vargas as a pinch hitter, or rather, looking at the wrong box score. They'd already used Kelenic as a pinch hitter. They'd already used Peters as a pinch hitter. Murakami didn't get the start. They already used him as a pinch hitter. Randall Grichuk got the start. Antonacci was already in the game. Yeah, Drew Romo was really the one guy that you could have pinch hit there. Everybody else had already played. So, Edgar Quero just looks lost. And I think Will Venable needs to realize that. But I go back to Sunday and the options you could have had on Sunday. Why are you bringing up Luis Angel Acuna? Because you got the tying run on base. You got the tying run on base. And your hope comes in the form of Luis Angel Acuna, who from start to finish has been the worst hitter on this team this year. He is awful. He's straight up awful. And when you look at Luis Robert being hurt with the Mets right now, it is a true 0-for-0 trade at this point. Nobody has won from this trade. Just simply put, nobody's won for this trade. Robert's hurt, and Acuna stinks. Per Baseball Reference right now, his WAR for the year, if I can find it, but a couple of interesting numbers. His BABIP is 209, so even when he's putting the ball in play, he's not getting hits. His ground ball rate is 61.8%. So for somebody who quote-unquote has power, he's not getting the ball in the air. His WAR is a negative 0.4 at this point. His OPS plus is 22, which the league average is 100. His overall on base is 239. His slug is 188, and his OPS is 426. He's awful. I don't care who else you bring up here. I don't care that he has positional versatility to play the infield and the outfield. He stinks. It's time for him to get sent down to Charlotte and bring somebody else up. And the fact that he was not pinch hit for on Sunday, to me, is a concerning sign that Will Venable sometimes doesn't have the awareness of you're sending up a dead man walking. That's what it felt like with Caro when he came to the plate on Tuesday night. That's what it felt like with Acuna on Sunday, and why he just continues to roll Luis Angel Acuna out there. It's driving me crazy because this guy is a complete zero of an at-bat. He's got 89 at-bats this season. He's got 14 total hits. He has one extra base hit. One. It's a double. His isolated power, which is a stat that I really have come to like. And one's isolated power is the number that you get when you subtract batting average from slugging percentage. His isolated power is .013. That is awful. Straight up awful. And his strikeout rate's close to 16%, which some might say is not bad, but that's not good if you're not hitting the ball out of the ballpark or getting extra base hits. My point being is that this road trip should have been a lot better than it was. You're continuing to get really good at-bats from Munetaka Murakami, who's now got 14 home runs. Yes, the strikeouts are high, but you accept that. Miguel Vargas is swinging the bat better. Andrew Benintendi is starting to swing the bat better. And if you can build up his trade value, I'd love to see him shipped off somewhere else. He had 4 hits in the win against the Angels on Monday and 2 on Tuesday. So if he's starting to play better and he starts to hit the ball out of the ballpark, now he hasn't homered since April 23rd, but if he can get back to the 20-homer guy from last year, maybe he's got some trade value. Because the White Sox at this point have a couple of guys that, if they play well, could have some value on the trade market if the White Sox are not in it this year. And the White Sox signed Randall Grichuk to be another outfielder because the Yankees released him. And I got no problems with the White Sox signing Randall Grichuk. To have Randall Grichuk and his experience and him when he's at his best, that's better than most of what you got in the outfield. And I'm not counting Sam Antonacci in this because Sam Antonacci is only playing the outfield by necessity. He's not going to be in the outfield long term. I think he is the utility infielder role. And so if the White Sox eventually bring up Braden Montgomery and he slots somewhere in the outfield, you move Sam Antonacci back to that infield-outfield utility role, and bye-bye Luis Angel Acuna, please. Please. But Randall Grichuk has had 5 seasons in his past with 20-plus homers. And with Toronto, in 2019, he had 31 homers. So if you have him in a platoon with Jared Kelenic, I got no issue with that. If those two guys build up their value, you can trade them. They're not part of the future. Although Kelenic is young enough to where if he starts to play well, maybe you keep him around and maybe he develops into a piece that stays a part of this outfield for a while and he finally realizes his potential. He's only 26 years old. It's not like Jared Kelenic is some washed-out over-the-hill player. He's a former top prospect that has just not lived up to his potential. That's the simplest way to describe what Jared Kelenic is at this point in his career. But the starting pitching is encouraging, and Sean Burke and Davis Martin continue to throw the ball well. Noah Schultz got beat up on Wednesday, and I knew that the Sox were going to have one game on this trip where they were non-competitive, and it makes sense that it was the getaway day. Schultz's command has some issues. I mean, he didn't give up a run in his Friday night start against the Padres, but he did have 3 walks before he had a single strikeout. And he had 4 walks in 3 2/3 innings against the Angels on Wednesday. But he's young, and he's tall, and he may not have his complete release point at this point in his career yet. And that's okay. He's still learning. But again, he's your top pitching prospect who you've been waiting to come to the big leagues for quite some time. And for the most part, he's thrived. But the 2 guys that have been elite have been Sean Burke and Davis Martin, who have taken big strides from last year. And Davis Martin is a guy that could be playing himself into an all-star appearance, just based on the way he's pitching right now. There have been some people that have said that maybe the White Sox should consider trading Davis Martin because he's got 4.5 years of team control left, and that's going to get you a lot back. But my argument would be, if this is the guy that has now arrived, why would you not want to keep him to be a part of your rotation for the near and the near-distant future? Eric Fetty's been fine. I mean, he's a guy that was on the street during spring training, and while he doesn't have a win, he's got an ERA of 3.8. To me, that's fine. Anthony Kay has been not good. He struggles with command, and if he gets through 5 innings in an outing, that's usually a surprise. So I'm hoping. I mean, you look at the White Sox starting rotation in there, hits allowed per 9 innings, Martin 7.57, Burke 7.26, Fetty 7.11, Schultz just 6.12, Anthony Kay at 10.5. Walks per 9, Kay is at 4.5, Schultz is higher at 5.8, but Fetty, Burke, and Martin are all 3 and below. And Kay's strikeouts per 9 is at 6, whereas Martin's at 8.8, Burke's at 7.3, Schultz is at 8.3, but more so, Kay's got a 2-year contract, but to me, he's the easiest one to say goodbye to because you're going to have better options. And that better option is hopefully Hagen Smith. Now, Tanner McDougal has got a flexor strain, so another guy that White Sox fans hoped would be part of the rotation at some point in the year is out for the foreseeable future. But, you know, if Hagen Smith is getting closer to being ready, then at some point you got to bring him up. In 7 starts at Charlotte this year, his ERA is 2.82. In 22 and a third innings, again, they're still treating him with kid gloves, so he may not necessarily be ready to be a full starting pitcher yet. But at some point, you're going to have to bring somebody else up because you're going to end up having injuries and you're going to end up having ineffectiveness. So I would like it to be Hagen Smith. I'm hoping that we see a rebound of Shane Smith and that he finds his way back onto the White Sox big league roster, but since he's gone down to Charlotte, he hasn't been much better. 13 2/3 innings across 4 starts ERA of 5.27, 8 walks, 18 strikeouts. So Shane Smith is hopefully going to get his command back on track, and we'll see him back in the big leagues at some point later in the year. But for right now, you have to be happy with what the Sox pitching staff is doing because it is a lot better than what we expected. And after the first week of the year where everything looked awful, this team has righted the ship. And I'm not going to say that they're contenders, but if they keep putting together good series and get through the next West Coast road trip and get through the month of May close to 500, with the way that the American League Central is this year, there's nobody that wants it. It is wide open. This thing is wide the F open. And if the White Sox continue to play good enough baseball, they may very well find themselves in position to make the playoffs. Will that happen? Probably not. But they very well could. And that should excite everybody. I want to talk about a couple of moves that the White Sox made on the off day. They activated Chris Murphy and Jonathan Cannon from the 15-day injured lists, and they were both on rehab assignments, so they were effectively returned to Charlotte off of rehab. The Sox ended up acquiring Trevor Richards from the Philadelphia Phillies, and Richards has been brought up to the big league roster. And in the corresponding move, and I say thank God for this, they have sent down Jordan Leisure, who needs to find some way to get a little bit more movement on that fastball so that it's not just straight down the middle, Yahtzee bomb, see you later. So Trevor Richards is a journeyman. He's somebody that has played in independent league ball. I believe that he was with the Gateway Grizzlies of the Frontier League as his first minor league or independent league action. He played at Drury University, which I believe is a Division II school. He's 32 years old. He made 2 appearances with the Phillies this season at the big league level, 9 appearances with the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs at the AAA level, had an ERA of 1.93 down in Lehigh Valley in 14 innings. If nothing else, this is a veteran relief arm and somebody that can stabilize the bullpen. So, I like the move. I think the White Sox bullpen is going to continue to change. I think that you're going to see more and more young guys come up, and I think that you're going to end up seeing some guys that make their way into the bullpen that maybe you didn't expect. Just because I think that this is an unfinished product. And the one thing that I could also see changing is that maybe the White Sox send Grant Taylor down to the minor leagues in order to stretch him out to be a starter. I think that there's a lot that's still to come in terms of what Grant Taylor's future is going to be, but I don't think it's going to be as a middle inning guy forever. And I think that they traded for Chris Murphy for a reason. And while he was really bad when he was at the big league level, I think that he'll be back in the bigs at some point soon. But the fact of the matter is that when they got Brian Hudson back and they had originally put him on waivers, the Mets took him, and then they got him back from the Mets at the start of the season, he's come up and has been really effective. And so they haven't needed Chris Murphy. But Chris Murphy is somebody that I think the White Sox are hoping is going to end up being a part of their bullpen a little bit later on. I don't know what the future is for Jonathan Cannon other than I don't want him back in the big leagues until his command is better. And I think he's a bullpen guy. I think he is a 6th or 7th inning guy if he can get his command under control. I don't think he's a starting pitcher anymore. At least not what I see. not what we've seen from him over the course of his time at the big league level. He's got to be better than what he is if he's going to have a major league future. But these are fun times. This is an unexpected fun time. I am happy that I leave this road trip wanting more, not being satisfied with 3-3. This is what this team is doing for us. They are giving us hope in a situation where we, in the past, over the past 3 years, should have felt no right to have any hope. They're moving in the right direction. We feel like every game that they play, they have a chance to win, which is not something that I have felt since the 2022 season, when everybody thought they were going to repeat as division champs, and that ended up as a 500 year. But this is a brand new team compared to what that team was from 2022. We all know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. But this White Sox team, they are building in the right direction, and it's road trips like this past one that I felt like they could have gone 5-1. I felt like they should have gone 5-1. But if this was the past couple of years, you would have been happy with 1-5. Expectations are changing. And I think White Sox fans should feel like, based on the first 6 weeks of the season, that expectations have officially been elevated. Thank you for listening to Believe in White Sox, and don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again for listening and watching Believe in White Sox. We will talk to you very soon.